Okay. I'll call the DMAC meeting for October 8th, 2025 to order. I'm Neil Bryant, the facilitator and chair, and we'll begin with the minutes from the prior meeting. Are there any corrections or additions? If not, could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved. Second?
Second.
Phil. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, same sign. Carries. Next, public comments. And before, as an introduction to the public comments, I give an overview of the process and where we are today, because there's from the public comments and emails and whatnot, there is some confusion. But in November 2024, 2 new commissioners were added to the county commission to bring us to 5, and that'll take place beginning January 2027. And the new commissioners will serve 2-year terms once elected in May of 2026. At the same election, the two other commissioner posts are open, presently held by Commissioners Adair and DeBone. So there'll be 4 on that particular ballot. All will be nonpartisan. The Deschutes County Commission decided in May of 2025 to appoint a 7-member advisory committee to the commission. And you see them here, all are volunteers. And their task is to map 5 zones for the 5 commission seats. None of the zones will be at large. This is our 6th meeting. In addition to Bend, we've met in Sisters, Lapine, Redmond, and we meet on a weekly basis. And next week we have something that's a little different, and this is largely because of the comments that we've received. On the 16th, there'll be a listening session at 5:30 here in this room. And the idea there is that'll allow people who have to work during the day to come and offer comments and testimony. Also, it won't be a regular DMAC meeting. In other words, there can be conversation between the people who offer testimony and the DMAC. Frequently, we'd like to be able to ask questions. People who offer public testimony want to ask questions. Well, this will be your opportunity to do that again on October 16th at 5:30. Once the DMAC decides on the mapping, then it'll be sent to the Deschutes County Commission, and they have the power and the obligation to decide to either accept the report and the maps or do something different. And so the anticipation would be that would happen sometime in November or December, with the commission acting in December, because if they want to put this on the May ballot for 2027, they need to act in December. And that if nothing goes forward, then all the commissioners would be elected at large. So for many of you, I recognize you've been at the other meetings. You realize we rely heavily on the 2020 census and other data points, voter registration, and much more information. But today we're going to look at some public maps, including mapping submitted by members of the public. And we're going to take a deeper dive into race and ethnicity, which the census provides from 2020. They ask questions about that, and so we'll have data on that also. So with that, right now I only have one yellow sheet. If anyone else wants to provide public testimony, please provide or fill out the form. But Nathan, I see you sitting here. Come on up.
Hello again, committee members. I wanted to address a couple of comments that I heard 2 weeks ago from you during discussion. I was not able to attend in Lapine in response to something that I brought forward to you, which was, again, that I highly recommend that you specifically request.
Is your mic on?
Is it? I think it is. Oh, I just need to be closer to
There
it.
you go.
Jeez. I recommended that you specifically request testimony from various local groups in order to get their impact on what types of maps would split districts. And I heard two comments. One was that children are represented by their parents, which is in general true, but that there are a significant number of children in Deschutes County who are not represented by parents. There are children in the foster care system, and there are children who whose interests are not represented by their parents either. And so therefore, I think the voter registration data does not include children, and children do deserve to be represented by their local government. I would recommend that you request testimony from people who have that as their professional experience of helping to support children in Deschutes County. The other one is, I heard someone on the committee say, and I think you're going to address this today because you already mentioned that you're delving into demographics around ethnicity. So this might be, you might have already covered this, but I think it is very important to get, particularly from perhaps the Latino Community Association, as they're a significant portion of the population, but not enough. As of 2020, it was maybe around 7% of the population of Deschutes County. That is not enough to guarantee, as a voting block, that they could get a county commissioner. But if those people are grouped in a specific area and that area were split, then it would guarantee statistically that they would not be able to elect a representative for that particular group of people. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Any others who would like to testify?
If there's anyone online
Pardon?
on Zoom, should we check?
Oh, on Zoom. That's a good point. Kim, do we have any on Zoom? None at the time. Okay.
Neil, I have a question about public comments that are emailed.
Yes.
We had quite a lengthy comments, which had several questions sent by.
Virginia.
It's in here somewhere. Anyway, I was from Virginia Gonzalez, and I was curious as to who is responding to these types of emails.
It depends on the questions, but I believe Nick responded to partial and Lee responded to partial comments on that. Is that correct, Nick?
I did. I haven't had a chance to this morning yet. I did, and I CC'd the district mapping advisory committee on this as well. I guess today afternoon.
Didn't see that.
Okay, I didn't see him.
Yeah.
I'll confirm, but I did reply, and I'll make sure that you do receive it.
I
Yes,
also
Phil.
never got my packet, so I didn't review the emails. I don't know where it was, if it was sent out this week.
Oh,
It was sent out last week.
Question,
Yeah, I
that
didn't-
two people did not get the packet yesterday afternoon.
Unfortunately, Jen is out of the.
Usually it comes on our website.
Yes, but I received mine on Thursday afternoon, so I think that maybe Jen sent hers before. And so I checked again yesterday and I didn't have any updates, but I didn't check late in the afternoon, which is maybe why I didn't see yours. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't see it at all, so I don't know if it just didn't come through on CC or.
Okay, actually, I just replied to all with the message that was resent. So I'll make sure, maybe there was something incorrect about that, but I will make sure that you all have that. Yeah, this is a bit of a different week for us without Jen who really helped staff the whole thing. We had a backup person that was helping that was unfortunately out of the office for 4 days. So we don't have as much posted. And the agenda packets posted. That's what I'm using on right now, but I'm sorry that you didn't get as many hard copies of it. It's hard copying out.
Thank you. We'll now go to item 4, format for community listening session. Nick.
So a week tomorrow, on Thursday, October 16th, we will, at your request, we have scheduled a community listening session from 5:30 until 7:30 in this room. A couple of quick questions for you. And I'll just put all these out there. I don't need a discussion. If you want to limit testimony comments to 3 to 5 minutes, another time frame. Your decision on that. How, just so that you're all on the same page, how would you like the responses from the committee members to be to the public? In terms of listening, do you want to just listen? Do you want to give committee members the opportunity to engage in a discussion, or, for example, just limit it to clarifying questions? Somebody raises an issue about, say, a community interest, a committee member might say, can you clarify what that means? But that would be the limitation of it. So just so you're all on the same page about what the dialogue, if any, is between the committee and the public. And then the last question is, would you like to sit where you're at now, or would you like us to put tables on the floor for you? You have, for the public, you may not be able to see, but you have monitors in front of the committee members have monitors, which is really, really helpful for maps. Would you like to sit there with the monitors next week that we may or may not use is listening, or would you prefer to sit on the floor where it's you're much closer to the public testifying? In your call, we're happy to organize it however you would.
Lee. I did Lee again, didn't I?
Yeah, that's all right. My question would be, if we're going to do something different with the seating, how does that get relayed online? Because I know this room is kind of set up to optimize the online situation with the way we're set up here. I don't know how that would work if we're out there.
Two pieces. One is my mic on? I just got a message that my mic wasn't on, so I'm hoping that it is. We conduct meetings where the board commissioners, city councilor, planning commission, others do sit here. So we do have other cameras. It may just be a static camera, as opposed to right now, as you'll see if you look at your monitor here, you'll see various angles come in. But we're set up to have the live streaming video for committee members here as well, and the public.
Melanie.
Yeah, so my suggestion would be to be down at the table. I just think it's a little more accessible feel than being down here kind of looking down on folks. I think those testimony tables was just kind of how we initially had it set up for the joint meeting the other day. We could still leave those there and just have us sitting around at tables together with the community members. I think 3 to 5 minutes is fine, depending on how many people show up. And I would suggest not having back and forth with committee members. It can just be, what if a committee member says something I disagree with? Now I want to respond as well. I would say if we're going to respond, what sometimes we do in a public hearing at council is we take all the public testimony, and then there can be some response at the very end. And we could maybe go down the line and everyone can respond to anything that they feel like they want to respond to. So then everybody gets a chance and we're not getting into too much back and forth. And then all of a sudden we've spent 10 minutes with one person while everyone else is waiting to testify. So.
Carol.
Okay, I did a little bit of background because we do candidate forums all the time with the League of Women Voters, so I do have some experience in this. I think that 3 minutes is perfectly adequate, and it also would allow for 40 people to comment, as opposed to if we gave them 5 minutes, it would only be 24 people. I think it's a little tricky to base it on the number of people who really want to speak. If people come in knowing that they're going to have 3 minutes, then they can address it and they can bullet point it, and you can say a lot in 3 minutes. The other thing is that I also think that as far as responding back, I agree with Melanie where it'd be a lot of back and forth. And I think that if they use their 3 minutes wisely and they still have questions, then we can say, we will, please email your questions, or they'll be in the minutes. And then we will respond back as a group, because for each of us to say, well, this is what I think, is just going to use up a lot of time. And the purpose of this is for them to give comments and for us to listen.
Drew.
Yeah, well, I'm all good with that. The only thing I would suggest is if it turns out that the public is not using their full allotment of that 90 minutes, that it ends up potentially that time is ceded back to the committee. And mostly I'm just concerned about trying to address factually inaccurate statements that the public might make that are not kind of hit head on, because I've heard some of those at several meetings beforehand, because there continues to be, I think, a misperception about what this committee's role is, even though Neil has restated at the start of every meeting, and how the commissioners might or might not implement our recommendations, and how it's going forward to the public. I get the sense that a lot of people think that whatever we come up with is the gold standard that is just going to be adopted by the county, that it's not even going to a vote in the spring. So it's that kind of thing that I want to make sure we kind of hit on the head somehow or another at this session. I mean, I'm all for sitting here mostly taking in the input, but if there's that kind of thing that gets raised, I would hope we can address it.
Bill?
Yeah, so I see it different than like being a city council or county commission, taking comments, then wanting to respond, because we're in those roles, you're elected to represent the people. We really are here at the request of the county commissioners to come up with a specific deal. So I'm really interested in hearing what people have to say about what we're doing, but I don't know that we really have a response. I don't know that we should all respond to what they all say or pick and choose what we're going to respond to for whatever reason. I thought this was just for receiving information. I think that's one thought I have. So I'm not sure the role of us responding in this. The second part is that I think would be helpful if, given the commentary we've had, and as Drew said, some of the feelings that we get from input already, is that there's no, it's not a public process, that the whole laying that out again, that's a 3-step process. We're doing the first step, then the commissioners do something, then it goes to the voters, making that clear that they're here to guide our kind of as, almost as an expert role. What do you say as somebody that lives in the county that's relevant to our decision-making, but it's, how we get that focused. I don't know, but I'm interested in hearing whoever wants to speak, but a lot of time does get spent on things that we're not asked to do. So those are my 2 thoughts.
Yeah, Matt?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I would agree. I think if we're having a listening session, we should be here listening. I don't agree with entering into a dialogue or discussions or arguments with anybody that's coming to tell us what they think. I mean, if we don't agree with what they're saying, we can discuss that at our next meeting. I think it's counterproductive to get into, like you say, discussions if we're going to try to move people through and hear what they have to say. And I would also suggest that in the interest of keeping things simple, that we sit up here and where we've got room to lay our stuff out in our notes. And if we try to set up tables down there, it's going to be so crowded and busy that whole area is going to be full of tables, and it's going to be more difficult to listen to the people. And also this allows for the Zoom discussion.
One suggestion that I found successful when I was in the Senate is have a table like that for the witnesses to come up to, call 4 at a time. And you have the mics there, so you pick up the information. It's easier for me then to keep track and say, I'm sorry, your 3 minutes is up, et cetera. And then by doing that, and each group of 4 that come up, then they know what their time and they're treated equally. And then it just allows the facilitator to have that control over who's speaking at what time and what their time limits are. So I like the table and the people then behind that, but that's just my preference as a facilitator.
You will be doing the timing, correct? Or how is that going to work? And then I would suggest that at your 15 seconds, you have a yellow card that you hold up that they know that they need to wind up their remarks.
Yeah, what we can do is, we'll have somebody on the first speaker. We do have a clock on the
Okay.
screen, so we can even put it up on the screen here. It'll be
Somewhere they
here.
can see it.
See what we can do.
Yeah.
A couple of things, just, we can scooch those tables back if you want to.
We did it the other day.
We can open up the wall in the back and just make sure we have plenty of space. Just so you don't feel like crowding is going to be an issue. And it's your call where you want to be, but just know we have lots of flexibility in how we set it up to meet your expectations.
Bernie?
Do we, excuse me, do we need some kind of motion to say we're going to set up here? We're not going to have dialogue back and forth. We're just going to listen.
Seems like we're kind of all in agreement mostly.
But yes, yeah, do we need a motion?
I don't think we do. I think we consensus-wise agree how we're going to do it.
Okay,
Well, question, So how are we going to do it? I didn't hear the consensus.
Back and forth, sitting up here, which I think would be fine down there, but I'm fine sitting up here, 3 minutes. And Neil's facilitation, you facilitate how you need to make it run smoothly, and that we're mostly listening and not having the back and forth dialogue.
And in my comments in the beginning, I'll go into a little more detail about the 3 steps, where we are today, that sort of thing. So maybe some of the misconceptions that people have will be alleviated by doing that. Drew?
I wonder if staff could produce just a slide at the beginning of the session that lays out timetable and some of these steps. I think that would be really helpful. Yeah.
I was thinking the initial outline of the group that we got in our first meeting could be available for people to look at too, that has all of the, here's the rules for the DMAC.
The criteria,
Yeah,
that sort of
and then
information.
people could have that as well.
Also, so for clarity, then it's going to be listening, and the give and take would only be if there's a clear misstatement on what the facts are or something.
And then would you be the one to
I
address
would
that?
leave that to you, Neil. I wouldn't want
That's
Okay.
committee members going back and forth.
Yep.
Yes, Ned.
Well, I don't care where we sit necessarily. But I think it's a listening session, and I think we need to listen, and you can ask a clarifying question. But I don't want to see a bunch of debate going back and forth between an individual that disagrees with an individual. That kind of gets dysfunctional in my mind, so.
Is that a consensus?
Yeah, it is.
All right, good job.
Mhm.
All right, now the good stuff. Update on data, and we'll begin with the American Community Surveys. Lee.
Thank you. All right, we've been looking in detail into the American Community Survey data, and up to this point, we've been using the 2020 U.S. Census redistricting block data and population count. And again, the voters were from the end of August. Looking at the community survey data, they do 1-year estimates and 5-year estimates, and the 5-year estimates are 5 continuous years of the 1-year estimate, and they do the 5-year estimate data down to the tract and the block group level, which are a little bit larger geographic area than the 2020 block data. So tracts are larger, followed by block groups, followed by the blocks, which we've been using for the population up to this point. And so the American Community Survey, the 5-year estimates are available down to the block group level from the blocks that we've been using. So looking through the data, there is a lot of data available, and I created just 3 maps for today for review to see what the data would look like for some different race groups, and how we can look at that compared to the precinct, the detail of the granularity, where it fits or doesn't. And then you can see what that looks like, and we can go from there if you'd want more data and what kind of data, get more details on that, because there is a lot of data. So I'm going to hand out 3 maps and I'll pass them along. They look similar, but they're different. And so if you take one and pass it on, and then we'll get through all of these. First.
Oops. Everybody takes one.
Just take one of
Oh.
these and give me the rest.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
On the map, if you look right above the little legend, it will tell you what the map is,
And could you put that on the screen?
and I will put that on the screen.
Thank you.
They're very pretty.
All purple. University of Washington.
Oh, let's say that.
I pulled 2, that's why.
I'm fighting words.
These are free to pull out. All right.
University of Portland.
Screen share enabled.
That's right.
There you go.
Quickly.
Good job.
I'm waiting for the Zoom setting to let me share my screen here, so just one moment, please.
Yeah, Ned, send those down, Ned, to the left. Oh, the third one.
Oh, thank you. Got it?
Here's your paper. You reuse them.
So the delay is we're trying to put these on the screen for you. There's 3 maps from the ACS on the 5-year estimates. And as I understand it, the estimates are in part based upon the census in 2020 that allowed, which did ask questions on race and ethnicity. And so the 83% of the census were white alone, and the next largest group was Hispanic and Latino at 8.7%. And next was 2 or more races, 5.4%. And what Lee has put together is some blocks on the Hispanic and Latino, Black and African American and Indian and Native, Indian and Native Alaska Natives. And we have a map that shows.
All right, now that I've got my screen shared here, we can see I've got the 3 maps. And this is the 5-year estimate data. And this is the total population count of this group by block group. So here we've got Hispanic or Latino, Black or African American, and American Indian and Alaska Native. And we're using ramped classification, so the darker areas would have a greater population for that block group. And when I say block group, as we mentioned, blocks, block groups, tracks, I'll just go to another screen. If you look here, we can see when I click this purple area, this is a block group, and it's a very large area, and it spans multiple precincts. And if we look in a more detailed area, such as 37 here, that spans those different precincts from 13, 37, and a little bit down to 49. So while this gives us a population count, doesn't necessarily say, well, is it concentrated up in 13 or in 37 or this other area?
Lee, Ned has a question.
Are the numbers, are the like on the Hispanic Latino, the darkest number 558 to 900, is that the number of people, or what do those numbers represent?
That's the population count of that group for the block, the block group. So that's
So
the
they're
number.
between 558 and 944.
Yeah, I think that's what he's saying.
So the total would be 944.
So we'll look at this one here, just zooming in more detail to give some more information about the data. So this 37 here, if I give this a second here to come up. Where did it go? Sorry about that. So this census, this block group here has, according to the data, a count of 214, but there is a margin of error within this data for all the data, the columns that they have. So in this case, the margin of error is 247. So for that count, you're supposed to take, the number, you can add on that margin of error to see that might be the top number, and it might be the upper part of the range of what could be estimated. Or you subtract the margin of error number, and it could be the bottom of the potential range. In some cases, some of the margin of error actually might be bigger than the actual count. So in this case, the count was 214, but the margin of error is 247. So it could be higher than 214 here, or it could potentially be lower, or may not have a count there. But the census says they have a 90% like confidence rate, 90% confidence in the data
So the zero,
for these counts and estimates.
Ned,
0 to 5 is, I guess, the range.
0 to 5, yeah. I just did a classification, just kind of a ramp scale to visually show where there's areas less concentrated or less population versus areas where there's a higher count of that population. So, that could certainly be adjusted, but it was just to visually show where I let the software pick it. I just said, show me 5 classifications, a natural break. So it finds 5 natural breaks in the data, and just it came up with those ranges to kind of give you a visual of where certain populations are lower concentration or a higher concentration.
other questions or comments? Melanie?
So Lee, could you overlay, one of the district map examples like over this and just help you kind of get a visual of where things are split up? Would that be possible to do? Not saying you have to do it on the fly right now, but
Yeah, it's doable. So we have the data. So if we took and one of those kind of option maps we've been looking at, 2B or whatever, then we certainly could show
Those-
each what those lines look like with the different demographics. Yes.
Okay. And because the blocks don't line up quite to the precincts, we probably couldn't pull an exact estimated number, but you could kind of see, are we running through an area that's generally more purple? Are we putting all the purple areas together? Like we could see that with that overlay.
Yes. Well, it's not as granular as the block, so you can certainly see those patterns. So if you were trying to use the data, you could say, do we want these precincts together or not? Are they intersecting or cutting through an area or not? So, sure.
Got it.
Ned?
So how do we use this data?
How do you use the data?
I mean,
I think that's what I was
Roy-
talking about.
okay.
Let me share my screen here. I clicked something.
Does it affect, are we splitting a community of interest or a minority group or something? Is that the risk?
Well, I guess that's how you want to look at the data, but like you can look at themes here. So if you have a certain concentration of a population in one area, you may not want to, split one precinct, like that area. If there's 2 precincts that are adjacent, you may not want to assign one to one district and one to another district. But you have to be careful with the data as well, because again, where this might span, where exactly is that concentration of a population or a demographic across those precincts. So certainly you can use it for like visual purposes to try to find like common areas, or could be a community or an area of common interest.
Yes, Phil?
I had a question on the American Community Services surveys. So is there other demographic or substantive information you could also gather from these similarly?
There's a lot of data. So they have sex, so male, female. They've got age groups under 5. There's under 18. There's like 21 to 25. So there's a lot of age groups. So if you were interested in something like age, it would help to know, well, what would you want to see? Because there's a lot of data available. So would you want more like, oh, we want to see perhaps the group under 18, and then we want to see 18 to like 40 and then over 40, or there's there's a lot of data available.
Is that something that would be available to us as a list of what? I mean, I'm not really asking for something specific. I just asking what's available at this point. I didn't know if they've done this for all sorts of things like home ownership or age.
There's a lot of data. They have like income, home ownership. They've got married couples. There's a lot of data. So it's taken time to research some of this and be able to get some of this data to show you. But certainly now with some guidance, we could pull some additional data. Certainly could try to provide some resources or links to that would help you view what might be available.
Melanie.
So did you also pull the population estimate data so that we can match that up to it would still be at the block level or the block group level?
They would still be at the block group level, and just like this example on the screen now, the 37, it would apply to that large area. And so where would that, there can be population estimates, but that 37 spans like you can see 13, 37, part of 49 down kind of west of town. So that's one thing about the estimates. They're just estimates and they do have a margin of error. So it could be helpful knowing some of that. But where it's not at that same granular level of the blocks, which have many more blocks within there that fall, and that 2020 block data has those higher, more accurate counts for the redistricting, which makes it easier to apply and get like a more accurate count for a precinct, the population for the precinct.
Do you know what the ACS estimate for the county population is? Just so we can know how much different we are from 2020, or maybe we could get that.
I looked, I think it was around, I'd want to double check it again. I think it was around like 203,000. And our current number we're looking at is like 189,253 or something like that, I think it is.
Drew.
Yeah, I do have a question and a comment, I guess. My question is, the source of their data, do they go out and get this directly, or is it fed from Portland State, or where is this coming from exactly? Do we know?
Good question. It's well, they do a yearly count, and I can't remember the numbers. It's like, I don't know if it's 2 million addresses, something like that, I think, per year, just kind of random sampling. And that's for the 1 year. And the 1 year isn't really recommended because we don't have the detail down to the level we're looking at. But then they take the 5 year, is 5 continuous years of the 1 year, and it's supposed to be like non-overlapping data. So it's supposed to make it more distributed and representative of the numbers. And so that's why they do that. And how they get the data, well, I read a number of things, like they had good old just fashioned mailers. They would do some calls, they would do in-person interviews, and then with technology, more online surveys and forms. And so, a number of methods that they use to, do random samples throughout the United States to collect this data and then try to compile it.
And you mentioned a 90% figure earlier. So I don't know, I'm being maybe overly simplistic here, but do I extrapolate from that then that we are talking about, by and large, something closer to a 10% margin of error across all this, or am I missing something here?
Generally, I read it and they say they have 90% like confidence in the estimates, but again, they're just estimates. So I guess like if they have 90% confidence, I would think that's like you say, it's a 10%.
I think confidence is different than margin.
Yeah.
Oh, I know it is, but yeah, confidence makes that margin of error grow even more, if you ask me. I'll just make a quick comment. I mean, I find this interesting. It's interesting to look at this, and I think there maybe are some clear concentrations that we're seeing just in these 3 maps you've given us. But I'd also say, given all the variables that we're just talking about right now, I would caution everybody that this really shouldn't be anywhere near the level of certainty and guidance for us that we're talking about with either the census data or the more recent voter registration. So to me, this only maybe comes into play as something of a tiebreaker or something as we start getting down to the granularity of some maps, and maybe we see that there's an area of deep purple here or there, and we don't want to divide that up. But I think this is granular in a way that's not terribly useful to what we've got to get on with today. So that's just my comment. I'm sorry.
Ned.
Yeah, I was kind of looking at it, the map, I mean, the groups are kind of dispersed, and unless, it seems like to me the use of the data is that we may not want to split some group, but as long as our maps don't split it, the colors are all over the county. So as long as we're not splitting them, and they're not contiguous, so we can't use them anyway. I don't know, it seems like it's interesting data, but I'm not sure how it affects how we use the data. It seems like as long as we don't split somebody on purpose, it's not going to help.
Melanie.
Well, I appreciate the maps, Lee, very much, because I actually think they do tell a story. They show that most of the folks in these groups are living within the two biggest cities in our county. And for instance, if you look at Bend, that the east side of Bend is more diverse and has more of these folks living on the east side of Bend than on the west side of Bend. And that Redmond has a strong Latino population within Redmond. So I think those are important things to remember, because one of our tasks and to make these maps legal is to make sure that we're not violating any provisions around diluting the vote of people in these groups, or otherwise making maps that are unfair to them. And I don't think we can determine if we're doing that if we don't have any data. And I know it's not exactly mapped to precincts, but it's pretty close on a lot of these. And so I think it is helpful to have. And I appreciate you putting it together. I would still like to see the block group populations just to compare, to see how much growth, again, to confirm how much growth has happened in which places in the county, just as we're thinking about this. But I think it's really important to have this data. And this is just to be clear for everyone, the American Community Survey is run by the U.S. Census office. So this is part of their work that they do in between the official censuses to try to create more information to be used. And these numbers are used to distribute federal money and other things. So they are relied upon by the federal government as well.
Ned.
I agree. It's important information, and I appreciate getting it. But if we come up with a set of districts, if we split some dark purple group on purpose, then I understand that that isn't necessarily what we're all about. But if we come up with districts that don't split it, I'm not sure how to use the data.
Melanie.
Well, I think there's a concept of both diluting votes and also packing votes into one area that we can think about. But again, we are not such a populous county that maybe this is the same way you'd think about it in a very, very large city, for instance, when they're drawing their congressional maps. So I think it's good to have this data. It informs us going forward. And I think you can even unintentionally make mistakes and problems. I just think we need to be checking ourselves and making sure when we're looking at these maps where they line up with some of this data and how we're thinking about communities of interest and things like that.
The comments? Thank you, Lee. I know this took a lot of time, but it's educational. Offers clarity. Next, we'll go to item 6, the map work. We have 6 draft map options. Options 2 and 2B are from the committee. 4 are PS, that's public maps that were submitted publicly. And 1 and 2 from Mike Tripp. Map 3 by Greg Bryant, who's here today. And map 4 by Casey Roscoe. So that's the information. And you also had a handout related to each of those that Lee passed out prior to the meeting.
Oh, he's up first.
Oh, Bernie, sorry.
Going through all these maps, PS3 seems to be the best all around get together. If we exchange area 2 and 3 and just reverse them, 2 and 5, excuse me, we're not going to make maps that everybody's going to like. The trick is to make a map that the least amount of people get upset. Because you're not going to have, nobody's going to be happy. Somebody's going to be upset. And if you look at the way we vote in this county, on the last election, we had like 72% voter turnout for local stuff and only 53% for federal. So election-wise, they're more active in Deschutes County on a local level. But the PS3 map is right now, in my opinion, the best solution to the problem without hurting as few amount of people as we can. Because all the county is divided up ethnically. We got everything everywhere. That's my opinion on PS3. If you just made that change on the 2 sections.
Which 2 were those again?
2 and 5.
2 and 5.
Probably the easiest way to do this is, Lee, why don't you walk us through?
Yep, so we're
You
looking,
can maybe make the change that Bernie suggested.
so just to clarify, we're looking at PS map 3 and the precincts 5 and 2, swapping those. Okay, so on your screen, we'll go ahead and we'll swap those from B to D.
Yeah, but these already got them swapped. I saw that. Yeah, it's all swapped. Just like that one. Oh,
Not gonna work.
okay.
All right, so what I just did is swap those to the different categories, and off to the right, you can see how it's affected the chart and the population counts. And then again, we also have like the voter counts.
So,
Yes.
so I would suggest we put 8. Oh, wait a minute. So how does this look with voters?
Here, voters, here's the voter chart right now on your screen.
Ned.
I'll go to Melanie.
Okay. So I guess I have a question on, and I think it's unfortunate I was absent at the one meeting where we made some decisions about eliminating maps, but how we are going forward with map options. Are we going to plan to put a couple up and have people comment on them and then we make a final decision? What metrics are we using to decide this one goes forward, this one doesn't? Beyond our little band of 5% here, I'm not sure what other things we're using. And some of this is spurred by the email that had a bunch of very good specific questions around what rubrics are you using to evaluate these maps? And there are redistricting rubrics that you can use about compactness and other things like that, that you can actually measure how good the map is as far as district drawing on a couple of different areas. So I guess I would love to have a little more structure on how we're going to be moving forward with picking out a map or 2, or what are we doing. I also want to say that I hope we can have a conversation about the population numbers again, because I wasn't here to give my input last week, but I don't think using voter registration numbers alone is acceptable. I think we have to use the population numbers that we have. And we have to get, I would hope we would be within 1%, which is what every other county that's districted in Oregon does. So I would love some thoughts on how do we move through this with some sort of structure? Are we eliminating one map and then adding more each meeting, or how are we getting down to the map that we want to present to the public as the option we think is the best?
At the last meeting, the committee elected to take away option 1, which was the library district, and option 3. They went to option 2, and then they made option 2B. Maybe the place structure wise to begin is to go to option 2, take a look at that again. 2, and then go to 2B, which is with the changes that the committee suggested last meeting. Yes, Bernie.
Can you put PS3 back up the way it was originally before the switch of the 2 and 5, so you can see where the population hits?
You want to swap them back?
Yeah, the way it was originally. Oh. Yeah, me too.
Can you see this?
Yeah, no, I'm
See
fine.
this distance with either,
Oh.
if I don't wear my glasses, I can't see.
Don't worry. No,
I
I
get like,
good.
I'll fix it.
Still high and the other one's low.
I have to fix 43. I clicked the wrong one. Hmm. Sometimes the web browser is slow. I think we're back there. Does that look right?
Are we there?
No.
yeah.
There. Is that good? Let me reference my hard copy.
That's
Yes.
My thought is if we started at option 2, then went to option 2B with the changes that were made and discuss again why they were made, take a look at where it is on voter registration and on the population on each of those, and then move into 1, 2, 3, and 5, or it's 4 rather. That might be a good way of progression.
what is the goal for today?
The goal today, I think, would be to take a look at maybe 1 or 2 options that the committee still wants to work with. And that would probably help with the listening session next week too. Ed,
Last time, we did eliminate one of the maps, I think, or 2 of them.
yes,
And PS1 seems like another one that we could eliminate.
okay, maybe we could walk through the first 2 first and then talk about 1 and see if that's
That's
another
fine.
one to eliminate.
We need a motion. I'll make a motion for you for that.
I
We might, let's just do the review if we could first, since Melanie wasn't here last week.
well, I mean, you don't have to catch me up. I would like people to say why, what are we doing and why, so the
Well-
public understands, and
well-
let's move through it.
Phil,
Well, so we did say some of that last week. So it was,
Recap of that, I just-
okay, well, we said it online last week about what we did. And so for instance, this one, this is 2, correct?
Yes.
And the way we got and so it was short in the north, they call it the northwest county, the, whatever that is, the purple, or I don't know what you call it. Anyway, when they start the sisters.
Bend corridor.
And the issue, what we looked at, if you hone in closer around Bend, it was we had, from the what we referred to as the Greg Bryant map, we had taken 21, which is the,
No, because
yeah,
they'll show it as 2B.
yeah. Well, I guess that's the point, is we got to 2B from 2. So,
Right.
I mean, so do we have independent comments today on 2? Is that our goal, Mr. Chairman?
yes, we're.
New
on all of
comments
them.
on 2?
Why don't we go to 2B? Because
Yeah.
that made the changes in option 2.
Yeah, so in option 2, if you look, there was changes up here in Redmond 18, I believe, something here you'll see in a moment, and down in this area, the best I can remember. And if we compare that, we can just toggle really quick. You'll see that purple down here. And that's 2B.
Look at the voter registration.
Could you go to the voter registration on that?
Yes.
Perfect.
So, okay, I have a comment on that.
Yeah. Melanie?
Hey, it's hard in your peripheral vision. I don't think either of these maps are acceptable because they're far outside the range of population. So I think we need to tweak to get within the range of population. I think it's unacceptable to have more than 5,000, what? I don't know, 7,000, almost 6,000 difference in districts. So I wouldn't move forward with either one of these. I'd work on this more.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
The yellow one is at much higher level. It's about 6,000 over the lower one. So it doesn't meet our parameter of 5%. So you would need to adjust that by taking a precinct or 2 out of the yellow and moving it to another of the 4 zones.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Matt.
Yeah, we actually had a pretty good discussion at our last meeting about which was likely to give us more accurate current data, and discussed the fact that the census is 5 years old. Redmond has seen significantly higher growth rates than other parts of the county, and that if the ratios hold up of voter registration to population, that our more accurate data is actually going to be voter data or registration data, because it taps back to DMV, et cetera, and is more recent and more accurate, likely to be more accurate information and reflect population, because we do not have actual population data that's current. It's 5 years old. And so that the voter registration actually represents current ratios of what population is going to look like today.
Bill?
Well, and so this is a good example to me. That's what Melanie's saying, is that, so we know this district, the East Bend district, that in 2020 probably had a disproportionate amount of housing, but there hasn't been very much built in in that district, I don't think, compared to what's been built in the 2 of the ones that are showing low here, both the Sisters everything North Bend, because you can think of the things out Deschutes Market Road, you can think of all the stuff in Sisters, the things surrounding Redmond, and then in Redmond itself. So the 2 that take the average down population wise in 2020 have had a lot of growth, whereas the growth in the Southeast Bend district, most of that was in the urban growth boundary. It's only now coming online, east of in Stevens Ranch in that area. And so 5 years from now, it may have more, but I think it's clear. I think it's important to look at the population, but it's also, we're knowledgeable about the growth, and we could probably get more knowledgeable, but I live in this area, so I know kind of that area, and then I've seen the others, and that's why I think that 2020 isn't necessarily the best, assessment of where we are now, because we all live in different parts, and we can talk about the growth in our various regions, but that's my example.
Melanie?
So my first question is, how do we know that the voter registration data is proportional with population growth? How do we check that? How do we find that out? We have general motor voter registration, but that doesn't account for people who can't vote or aren't voting or don't have a driver's license, don't drive, or are kids, right? That has been mentioned before. So that's question number 1. 2, I really disagree with you, Phil. I live in the southeast corner of Bend. That is where we're going to be building so much housing coming forward, that we have this whole southeast area plan. We have Caldera Ranch, we have Stevens Road Tract and Stevens Ranch out there. So to start with this disproportionate population and we're going to see more growth in that area. This gulf is going to get wider. And this is what's called packing. You're diluting the votes of those people in that disproportionate district. So I cannot support any map that has more than 5%, frankly, more than 1% difference between the districts, especially if you're taking the east side of Bend and putting it into this area where we know there's going to be more growth. My final question is there any other districting effort that's happened in Oregon that has used voter registration data instead of population data? I'm guessing not. I could be wrong. I will happily look at that myself if the committee doesn't want to look at that, but it's wild to me to say, well, the 2020 data is not good enough, and then we have the ACS data, but that's also not good enough. So we're just going to hope that the voter reg matches our growth in our population. We're going to need a lot more metrics besides just the voter registration if that's how we're going to go. If we're going to disregard the census data from 2020. But I really disagree, Phil. I think we are growing on the southeast side. Southeast is going to be where tons of housing and growth is coming in. And we haven't looked at building permits or anything like that, which is actually in our purview in the list of things we're supposed to look at. We haven't seen any of that information yet. So at the very least, we need to see more of that information to have concrete data on where the growth is happening.
Drew. So I'm going to say something I said at the last meeting, but I think it bears repeating. I don't know why these two things are mutually exclusive. I think we should be looking, the holy grail, as far as I'm concerned, is we try to get into that box, both in terms of population and voter registration. To your point, Melanie, I also said this at the last meeting, the problem with saying, yeah, I don't think there is much precedent for using voter registration over population data, but the problem you get into is most districting or redistricting efforts take place at the time of the census. And so what's unusual about what we're doing here is we're doing this at a mid-census point. And so I think it's only appropriate for us to take both criteria into consideration here. I personally would not put weight over one over the other at all, because I think you've got issues with both. I think they both need to be considered, and I think we should not be looking at mapping options where we are not hitting that box. I would love it if we could get to that 1 or 2% level, as you say also. I think 5%, though, gives us plenty of leeway to be able to hit this for both population and voter registration.
Ned.
I've got a slightly different question. On these precincts, why do we, and we're speaking of Southeast Bend, why do we have 233 districts and 234 districts and 241 districts? Is that because we're split them?
That's the city boundary, I think.
Well, ask our clerk that.
Yeah.
Steve.
Yeah, Ellen's correct. City boundaries and the last redistricting effort by the legislature cut those precincts into parts that couldn't be joined up with other neighboring precincts. So those ones that they are left until probably this next time around to be reevaluated and combined, hopefully, into other precincts. That section of 34, for instance, on the east side, there's a very small pocket that was divided by congressional district right inside the city boundaries by 9 households. I don't know why the legislature drew those lines that way. 9 households. Not sure who lives there, but it sure was interesting how that was just kind of looped right in. District 2 looped into the city of Bend, and there was that would create a precinct split that that couldn't be combined with anything else. That type of information.
So what do we do with the two numbers?
I'm not sure what to make of your question.
Which, can we split them, I guess,
Further?
for this purpose, mapping purpose? The one district doesn't make any difference, but the others make a little difference.
Yeah, the sections of 33 and 34 that are split, I'd have to look at the exact combination of districts that are there. I'm not going to say, and that wasn't an ask. It was just that, I guess it was just an ask, was to keep the precinct lines contained. But if ultimately you decide to do something different, then that's up to your committee. I can't say that's right or wrong.
Okay, that's all I needed. But also, I did mention a couple of times, the correlation between voting and population is pretty strong. And in some districts, we have more voters than we have population. So it seems to me like what, I don't remember who else was saying it, we need to consider both population and voter registration and look at the correlation between them.
Bill.
Yeah, I agree that we should look at both figures. And I just want to clarify, I didn't say that Southeast Bend wasn't going to grow in the future. I'm saying, I exactly said that. I said it's lined up now to start growing. I'm saying though in 2020, there was more, it might have a bigger population than the others because I think there's been more growth in some of the other proposed areas we're talking about. And we could, I guess, get it through building permits, but you can visually see it too. And some of the growth you're talking about in Southeast is actually going to be out of what we're proposing as a district. It's going to be down in 43 or it's going to be in 2. So I think it's just the issue to me is that voting is very easy for people doing the state. It happens to lots of people. We have, a lot of people that don't vote actually they use their rights, but the voting itself and the registering is very aggressive in Oregon. So I'm not concerned personally that we're going to be somehow unfair to somebody because of that, given the kinds of things that the county deals with. So I'm happy I just think it's a more accurate number, but I like considering both. But
Okay. Why don't we go on to map 1? PS map 1. Technology, sorry. And this was submitted by Michael Tripp. And could you go to the voter registration on it?
Yes.
The question, you're asking if it's contiguous?
That's not, yeah,
No,
doesn't work.
it's not. It's just an example of someone submitting a map and we decide to look at it.
yeah, the other,
And just to make a comment, so on these, the PS maps, those were the publicly submitted ones, and couple maps I had a good list and selected the list to create these. And initially I just had the visuals for a couple maps and did my best to reproduce them and worked with Jen to get some additional numbers. So I tried to make these as accurate as possible with what was submitted. There's potential there could be something that might need to be moved, or if someone sees something. But I believe that could have been where that was initially drawn, but
But it's not contiguous.
it's not contiguous on this map.
Should we go to map then 2, PS map 2? Also by Michael Tripp.
The same thing with 11 being out.
Yep. Again, it's 11 is not contiguous.
And again, if you see anything or agree you want to move something, I can certainly run that scenario.
All right. Are we ready for map 3?
Map 3. Got the population chart, the voter chart. And just a reminder on the chart on the left-hand side, it will, it says whether you're looking at the population or the voter count.
can you show the top part of, the top part of Bend there? So it looked like green was short or when on the, yeah, it was on the voter, green on the voters was too much, I guess. And one thing I'd suggested before is not having 11 in that, but having that in being 11 into the West Bend one.
Probably. Lee, on this one, does it reflect the changes that Bernie wanted?
You want me to move that 11 into West Bend? I'll do that right now. Make it D. Okay, so I've moved 11 from A to D. And here we're looking at the population. And here's the voter. Population. Voter.
Comments or questions on map 3?
I wonder what happens if you were to take 2 then and put that in. We're still low in the sort of goldenrod zone, I'll call C, and shifting a bit from the West Bend side into that would equalize it out a little bit.
You want me to move 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Population. Got voters.
So this,
Yeah, there are 4,500 people there.
Yeah.
Bill.
48.
so this, if you took out 5 and put it in West Bend, wouldn't that make these numbers all match?
It's going to blow that up in.
There's a population of
We'll put it in
8,500
West
roughly.
Bend. Put it in West Bend, so this one would go higher and that would go down. Like that would get it fairly close.
Would you like me to move that and see what it looks like?
Yeah, move that
Yeah,
into D.
So we're gonna move it into the pink.
Yes.
The population. The voter graph.
how did it go up? It was below the box last time and now it's way above the box. It's just one precinct.
People in that precinct.
Has a population count of 8,500 voters, almost 5,500. So
It's population precinct.
Well, the other thing we could do is, if you can get there though, you could take 8. Oh, it's in there already.
It's
Okay.
only 800.
Yeah.
1,000 people.
if you're looking at your screen, I can also click on the map here and I can tell you what the numbers are.
What's that look like on voters?
Mapped.
Which one?
That one.
8?
No, the total vote, switch the screen to the
Oh, okay, thanks.
voters as opposed, okay.
Still out of whack.
This is the voter graph.
Another suggestion would be to put 25 into East Bend.
Yeah.
Good.
It's another big one. It's 7,000. 5,500,
How
7,000.
is it?
But that could just do it.
Did you want me to move that? 25?
Yeah, let's
D.
do that.
That's voters. The graph is voters. This is population.
Ned,
What are we doing?
we're thinking.
Moving blocks around.
Yep. Does anyone else have changes on map 3 that they want to see? Yeah,
Well, if you,
Matt.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what would happen if we move 25 back and then swap 5 for 8?
You want to move 25 back to the pink?
Correct.
All right. And what was the other one?
Swap 5 for 8.
Population graph. Here's the voters.
Sir.
Population. Voters.
Close. Other thoughts, or would you like to move on to map 5?
I'd like to suggest one last one. Could you take 33 and go ahead and put that in into C? But at the same time, go ahead and move 5. I guess it's 5. Yeah,
5 was the big pop.
or 2. Hang on a second. I'll make it, or make it 2 because that's a little smaller. Move 2 back into D. That throws it way out of whack.
Yep. Anyone else want to try something? Let's go to PS4.
I was gonna say that version I think went the wrong direction.
Submitted by Mr. Roscoe.
Population graph. The voter graph. Population.
What happens if you take 8 and put it into the gold, whatever that is?
Move 8 into the orange.
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
I think it might be good for us to consider that we're gonna have to not use precinct lines in some way to make this happen, and that we maybe direct staff to bring us a couple of examples that fit within the guidelines that we've been given on both population and voter registration. So that we can look at those at our next meeting and then maybe show them to the public at the listening session. We can sit up here and kind of tinker, but staff can go in and maybe we can give them some guidance, like don't cross highways or, but there's going to be some tinkering, and I'm not sure it's like the best use of our time to sit up here and kind of point at numbers. We can say, hey, staff, why don't you give us a couple of examples of how do we get within that bar? Because I think just moving these precincts around, I think it's become clear to me we're not going to get there. So there's going to have to be some decisions made about how to, in a couple of places, go around the precinct lines. And that's going to take some data that we don't have in front of us. That would be my suggestion.
Ned.
I agree with what Melanie's saying. I worked these numbers a little bit, and earlier we were talking about getting to within 1%. There's no way you can get within 1% with the precincts the way they are. With this data that we've got, you can't get to 1% without splitting up precincts. It doesn't happen.
Phil.
Well, I guess that, I don't feel we have to get within 1%. This will be a, map and a districts will exist for 2 years, and then there'll be a new census that'll be completely, probably change the line. So I think getting map that reasonably, creates districts that will give, voters each, I just don't think the number of people is that crucial to get within 1%. I think it's, too much effort for what we're getting. It's a 1 year of districts, but it's easier to do when you're the legislature and you can just drive through things. But it is creating an additional burden on the county to have to do a different ballots and different voter pamphlets for these different areas. So I just think you should be realistic about that.
Ned.
Yeah, I think we're trying to split it too carefully also. I understand the state law allows 10%. Now, I know we've been given the instructions to go within 5%, but what if we were in 6 or 7%? I mean, everybody agrees that the numbers we have are not complete or not usable or something. Why don't we go to 6% or 7% and make that box a little bigger? And it might make the mapping easier.
Billy.
I just want to name the reason behind that, and that's a Supreme Court decision about not about local mapping, but about congressional mapping. This is where that 10% number comes from. It's not in statute or anything like that. That's the guideline. But I think the reason all the other counties who have districts are within 1%, because the reason you don't want wide differences between your districts is because of voter dilution. And if we're in a county of 200,000 people, we're not in a state of millions of people, right, where you're districting up the state. We're in a county of 200,000 people. So a couple thousand, 5,000, 7,000 difference between districts actually means quite a bit as far as diluting those people's votes when it comes to them being packed into one district and having one representative. So I just want to name the reason behind that and why I'm pushing us to just do the work to try to get that as low as possible. Then you can tell the voters, we've made this as fair as possible, right? We've gotten really close to making sure there's equal people in each district, so that you don't feel like you have had your vote diluted by being in a district with more people. And so I just, the reason why we're getting to that number, we can talk about what number we want to get to, but that to me is why it's important to try to get that number as small as possible.
Ned?
Well, I understand what you're saying. What occurred to me earlier, and we talked about a lot, is that communities of interest, just moving the boxes around so you get the right number doesn't mean it's more fair or less fair in my mind. So,
Yeah.
So what if we're a little bit over? I mean, it's going to change in a couple of years anyway. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe the 10% is something else. I don't know, but it was given, I heard it, and the county commissioners talked about it. We want 5%, but we could go a little bit more. That's what I heard.
I'd like to add on to that. The other part is that if we were using a census and we could say this is 1% or something, but we don't know that either of them are really accurate. I mean, we know that the census numbers aren't accurate. I mean, period. We know that there's been change in different parts of the counties. We can't really address it. And then you're saying that the voter numbers aren't good enough. So I'm with you. I would expand the box to 6 if we need to. I don't think that's hard to explain to people that we came up with what we were using for 2 different measurings. We try to get within that. I don't know what we're diluting really, but I think it's reasonable.
Neil,
Yes. Carol?
I don't think we should make it what's easiest for us. Our goal is to make it what is most fair for the voters. And if we have to put a little bit extra effort into keeping that percentage lower, that's what I think we should do.
Matt?
Yeah, I guess I certainly agree with trying to come up with numbers that are as equal as we possibly can. The big problem we've got is we've got a census that's 5 years old. Obviously, it's not accurate when we have more voters registered in some precincts than we have population. So what it shows is that those numbers are no longer representative of the different areas. Back to granted, both numbers should be taken into consideration, but I still go back to my firm belief is that population ratios, the registrations are a more accurate indicator of what has happened since the census. And this is going to take effect in 28. 2 years later, it's going to be redone when the new census comes in. And I think it makes sense. Like you say, the goal is 5%. I think 1% is completely unreasonable based on the fact that we do not have data to that level. I mean, there's no way to we could say what hypothetical imaginary data we're using might give us 1%, but we have no way to know if it's even close within 5% of what actual numbers are.
Oh.
So the census data from 2020 can be very granular, and actually you can go down, as Steve pointed out, you can draw lines around households. So we could get to 1%, which is again what every other county who district has done. What I'm hearing from this committee is really begging the question for me, why are we doing this now if we have bad data? It's only going to be in place for 2 years and then it's going to be redone. This is bringing me back to the beginning of this conversation. We have to commit to the data we have, or why are we doing this? So I think we have to use the data that we have. I have tried to bring in the ACS and say, let's get something that's more updated. And that has been thought, well, that's interesting, but we're not interested in using that. So I think we have to say, this is the data we have. We've been tasked with drawing maps from this data. Let's get it to the standard on the data that we have. If this is what we're supposed to be doing right now. But I'm telling you, if I'm a public member sitting here saying, well, this has only been in place for 2 years, we're going to change it anyway. I don't know how that engenders confidence in why we're doing this now and how we're drawing this map, right? And I also, this is a question I sent to Nick. I don't know when this map will be redrawn. We don't have a home charter. We don't have any direction. Are we going to be allowed to give advice on that to the county commissioners? I don't know. So I wouldn't say that with certainty. I don't know, but there is a reason that people do this and they don't do it mid-decennial. And I think we're running into that reason now. So I think we have to commit and say, here's the numbers we have. We're going to use these to the best of our ability, or we have to go back to the drawing board. But I think we want to be careful about how we're talking about how we're working from data that's not real accurate. And again, I question, can someone show me voter registration, and we could map it to the ACS data. How do you show me that that's proportional to population growth in the different places? People move around this county. I know in my city, people move in and out of my city and other places in this county. So I think we should try to be as accurate as we can with the data we have in front of us. But I get a little worried when folks on the dais are saying, don't worry about it, they'll be updated in 2 years. I think we have to really do our best we can right now with the data we have.
Ned.
I agree. We need to use the data we got. I don't think we're going to expand the data enough to get to what people are asking for. However, we've been given a certain set of rules. We can't split precincts. The precincts have to be contiguous, and we got to be within 5%. And those 3 rules don't work together. One of them is going to have to be violated or changed or modified if we're going to get to 5% or even less.
Drew, first of all, point of clarification. I keep hearing 2 years being bandied about. At a minimum, this would be taking effect for 4 years.
Right.
Because if you did a redistricting, that work would take place after the 2030 census. It wouldn't take effect at the earliest of 2032. So we're talking about something that our work could be approved by voters and take effect with the 2028 cycle and be around until 2032. So let's stop talking about 2 years, first of all. And then let's get back to the 5%. I don't know how we got ourselves distracted around this 1% number. I recognize that's what every other county does, Melanie, but that really is an unattainable goal, I think. But I still believe the 5%, both for registration and population, is doable. And I think if we have to split precincts, we can get to that point. I'm trying to make life easier for our hardworking county officials here. And I don't believe we should have to reinvent the wheel every time to get there. And I personally think we haven't exhausted all the possibilities yet. So the key things are 5% contiguous. If we have to break the rule on the precinct thing, let's go there at some point. But I don't think we're there yet. And I think we should use all the data that we can and our own understanding of the county and where the growth is. I mean, we're on this panel because we each bring a little different perspective to this thing, and collectively, hopefully, that's knowledge that we can bring to bear in a sensible way to make this work.
Okay. Why don't we try this? Are there some maps that we can eliminate today from further consideration? If so, which are those maps? And then which maps do we want to continue to talk about? And let's start with that and then go a little more into Melanie's comments. Ned.
Eliminate PS1.
Ned moves to eliminate PS1. Is there a second? There's a second, Matt. Discussion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there another motion? Yes.
I would move to eliminate option 2 because we originally worked option 2 into option 2B. So I don't see any real reason to carry option 2 around. We can, if we're going to refine further, we can work off 2B or not to be.
Second from Matt. Discussion?
Wait, we're eliminating two.
Two.
Okay,
Right.
got it.
Yes, yeah, sorry, I was
Two,
making a
yes,
joke.
2, not 2B. Thank you. Further, yes, Bernie.
I would, excuse me, I would eliminate PS4.
Before we do that, though, Bernie, we need to vote on this first. Okay,
Go ahead,
thank you.
my mistake.
All those in favor of eliminating option 2 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, same sign. Motion carried. Bernie, do you have a motion?
Yes, I would eliminate PS4 because it's way out by, it's got too high and too low on our box that we're supposed to hit by population. So it's way out of line.
Is there a second to eliminating PS4? Second, Melanie, thank you. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Sure. That leaves us 2B and PS map 3. Yes, Matt.
Well, I would move we eliminate PS2.
Oh, didn't do that, did we?
And second that.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Phil did.
Second, thank you. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same. Those opposed? Motion carries.
That was PS map 2.
Yes.
That leaves PS3 and
PS3
2B.
and 2B. Options 2B and PS map 3.
And I'm good with tweaking those.
Any further motions on the maps?
I guess I'd move that we move forward to our next meeting with those two then to just as exhibits or something. We're gonna, if we're doing that at the,
We got a meeting before the public meeting still.
oh, that's right.
Yeah, we meet a day before.
That's right. That's right.
My question is for further staff work. Melanie, you mentioned somehow collating the work on voter registration with an updated version of population. There's the American Survey and the Portland State Work, their center does updates. It's their estimates, as I understand it, and they don't go into precincts as far as if there's been a 10,000 increase in population. It can tell you where they are in cities and in the unincorporated areas, but it doesn't divide it into precincts.
No, it does the block groups that Lee showed us, which are approximate, but not exactly the same as precincts, right? So,
So is your suggestion then for staff, and I'm looking at Lee primarily, then to go into the blocks with the estimates on the population increase?
no, I think that's unreasonable to ask for by next week. And I'm just going to comment that this weekly cadence is really super hard on the staff, and it's really hard to put this stuff together every week. So I want to commend Lee and Jen and everyone who's been working on it. What I would suggest for our next meeting is to bring the two maps we have just talked about and show us how you can fit both of these columns on each side into the box, perhaps with going outside of precinct lines if necessary. And our what's on our website and what it says we're supposed to do is each district is nearly as practicable shall be contiguous, utilize precinct lines, not unreasonably divide communities of common interest and geographic boundaries, and consider current growth patterns, i.e. building permits and UGB expansions, which we've heard nothing about, except for in comment of us knowing kind of what's going on. And also I want to point out that our missive says maps shall be drawn so that populations of each district are approximately equal within 5%, which is what we've talked about today too. So I would say get us to within 5%, show us what that looks like. Where do you have to break a precinct up? I think that's why we got the non-contiguous map, because they figured 11 was the right number to get to there, but it wasn't contiguous. So is there some other way to keep it contiguous, but reach that, reach the number?
Yeah, well, I would invite staff to try to reach that before they break precincts. If it becomes, that's the
Sure.
sort of, yeah, the last option is your the last resort. But yeah, I think, we've got two core maps that we're relatively happy with relative to the other ones we've tossed out. And so my suggestion would be, if you can come back with 2 or 3 iterations off of these two, that get us closer, that would be fantastic for discussion next week. And then hopefully we can get back to putting 2 or 3 in front of the public on the 16th.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I would suggest, or actually I would move that we not meet next Wednesday, because we are meeting, in fact, on Thursday instead. And rather than doubling up staff time and everybody else and then trying to crowd any changes we might make next week into the public hearing stuff, I would suggest, or I move that we skip next week, Wednesday's meeting.
You heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Bernie. Is there discussion?
So yeah, the discussion being in that, like I say, we're going to be meeting for 2 hours or 90 minutes at least on Thursday. And since this is the regular meeting is just the day before that, like I say, rather than doubling up for staff and everybody else, let's keep it to 1 meeting per week.
Carol.
Those are 2 separate meetings. Our meetings are work meetings. The meeting on Thursday night is public comments only. So we are not engaged in working, we are engaged in listening.
Drew.
Also, Carol's here on Wednesday, I believe, and not here Thursday. Is that right? You don't want to say that, but I would like your participation at the next meeting. And yeah, I think to Carol's point, I think in order to make that Thursday meeting the most useful possible, I think if it's not asking too much of staff to do what we've just talked about, to create a couple different iterations, I think we need to be kicking those around on Wednesdays so that we have something cogent to put in front of folks on the Thursday, personally.
Yeah,
Bill.
well, I guess I'd like to hear your comments, Mr. Chair, in terms of what you think we can get done in the next meeting before the public one, because we do have some ideas. One of the things that I'd like to somehow drain, and maybe this could be a purpose of the next meeting too, is we're dealing with 2 data points that are exact, the voter registrations in a given month and the census. And I share the concern with the issue of it being fair, representative, et cetera, in terms of if that's our goal. But is there some way we can study those numbers and say, here's why this is more accurate, or here's the problems in the numbers or whatever, so that when we're including precinct A or precinct 1 in a deal and taking an assumption on the population, and then the voting is this much now, and there's been ones that have been dramatically changing and ones that haven't. I guess there's ways we could drill down to some of that and see if that's skewing numbers. But I don't know if that's something we can do in time for the next meeting. But do you think that we need another meeting before our public listening, or?
Well, let's hear from the other members of the committee first, Melanie.
Yeah, I think we probably should meet just to, unless we want to send these maps as is for the public to look at, with kind of the numbers not being where we want them to be. So that would be a reason I think you would want to meet next week to refine the maps and then be able to show them to the public on Thursday. And yeah, I too would, again, like to know about the growth, and that's something we haven't gotten into. And I don't know what additional data we would need, or the county staff would need to talk about that. Keeping in mind, Steve, am I right that the precinct lines were redrawn which year?
As Drew mentioned, after the last census, they went into place in early 22.
So some of the number difference might also be precinct lines have changed, right? And that's not necessarily a population change, it's just voters getting grouped in a different way. So it's kind of complicated. But I mean, if that's helpful, I think we should look at that. I don't know exactly what can be presented on that next week, but.
And I just wanted to also point out, just for just additional information, each one of these precincts, again, is a combination of a certain number or a certain districts, certain combination of those districts, if we start slicing and dicing those, we're affecting the people that are already in there and understand where they are. You're talking COCC zone lines and other boundaries that have been in place for some time. So when we start, maybe another piece of information that you'll want to consider will be what are these precincts and what does the makeup each one of these precincts when you're considering redrawing them. And the other consideration, if you're talking about splitting a precinct, are we talking about adding a new one or calling something, you're in one part of this precinct and you're in another? And if that's the case, I live in precinct 1 and I have 2 commissioners representing me. Which side of that precinct line am I on? Hey, I'm Commissioner so-and-so from precinct 1. Which side are you on? So in those pieces of information, but also understanding what those precincts are made up of could be part of the consideration.
Ed, did you have something?
I'm on a different topic.
Oh, okay. Matt?
Yeah, I guess I would agree that the precincts need to be kept intact. We start breaking up precincts, we're going to affect a lot of other issues and things as far as the county elections and data and everything from fire to everything else. When you start breaking up precincts and the way the voting's done and the data is kept, I would object to breaking up the precincts.
Yeah.
Yeah, back to my point about we are not supposed to break precincts. We're not supposed to have them, or they're supposed to be contiguous, and they're within 5%. I don't know how having a few more voters in one district is unfair to another district versus splitting up a precinct.
Going back to the motion, anything more on the motion? All right, we do have a regular scheduled meeting. It's been there for a while. We're making progress, but it's difficult, complicated in what we're doing. I think if we have the meeting, especially with Carol being there, that would be helpful. And we could maybe have a little more clarity and going into the listening session. So Phil, you asked me what my thought is. I'd keep the meeting. All right. No further comment. We'll vote. All those in favor of the motion to not have the meeting next Wednesday, signify by saying aye. Aye, one aye. Okay, all opposed, same sign. Okay, motion fails. All right. Oh, yes.
All right, just another question as a follow-up, as you've asked staff to, I'm unclear on what the ask was. Would you mind clarifying a little bit more for the record, please?
I think I would ask staff to take the 2 maps we selected and show us how they can be within 5% on voter registration and population. And if that requires dividing a precinct, let us know that. If it doesn't, then great. And I think that will give us information to work with next time. That's what I would ask.
Yeah, my suggestion was one or 2 iterations. If you can get to a couple of iterations off both these maps, that would be wonderful. If there's just one, and to Melanie's point, I hope it doesn't get to where you come back to us and say we had to split a precinct. I think you'll work pretty hard to avoid that somehow. I feel like you'll exhaust all the options from what I'm hearing, but.
Well, I guess, I'm fine with an iteration or 2 if things work along those lines, but I'm not in favor of any iterations that split precincts.
I think we have a consensus that we'll work with the existing precincts to see if we can come up with some lines that meet the standards and the criteria. And if not, we'll come back and say, you can't do it, you'll need to split. But we won't split as precinct, but that would have to be a consideration. But or increase the percent. Yeah, that would be in. Drew.
No, it's Phil. Sorry.
Phil.
So I have a question on the issue of 5 versus 6%. Why, when they're doing that, I mean, it'll be there. So why not also show if it's within 6%? Then we can look at that and say, this would be this is an option to 6 rather than us get through it. And they say, well, we have to split it. So we get to that meeting and we say, then go to 6 or something. Why don't we go ahead and show those numbers so that those of us that might be all right with that can see that and might save some energy that way.
Melanie.
We've repeatedly tried to go outside the lines of the missive we've been given, and repeatedly the county commissioner said no. So before changing the number of 5% or considering that as a goal, a different goal, I would want to make sure the Board of County Commissioners would support that. Doesn't make sense to me to spend effort on that if they're going to say, nope, we want you to stick to 5%.
True.
And I would totally concur on that. To me, this 5% number, it's no different than, we raised and shot down ourselves the notion that we might have some kind of at-large district. That was again something that the commissioners were pretty emphatic about. So I don't think we should start playing around with this percentage number without specific direction.
Bill.
So on that point, I mean, ask the commissioners. I mean, if it would, we've now worked with these maps and long enough to realize the problem between the population, the voting, and getting them both in the same box. And maybe it's something they should at least know we're thinking about, because I agree it would be up to them to decide that, but they may say within their goals, that's one of them. So, I mean,
Would you not do that until we see what can be done with the existing precincts? And then if it can't be done, go back to the commissioners.
Okay.
Ned.
Well, if we're trying to decide whether splitting precincts or 5%, which rule we're going to break. So I don't know why is one more important than the other?
Oh, because that's going to be a decision though of the commissioners.
But yeah,
Some may be goals and some may be rules.
well, that's politics.
Same list.
well, to that point, then wouldn't we need to ask before we do a 5%? I guess we're saying we do 5 and then we decide whether
Right.
we go back to them on,
Yeah.
do they want to split or do they want to go above 5?
Correct.
I see. Okay.
Other comments? I think we have a consensus. Nick.
Next Wednesday, the day before.
Oh, there we go.
We'll defer on that.
Okay, I just so there's not an expectation that I'm going to get a definitive response for them before 1 p.m. a week from today.
Anything else? We are adjourned. By the way, this is not easy. Your tolerance, your patience, your intelligence are all appreciated. Thank you.
I'm keeping.